Hello, Oppu. Welcome to this interview. My name is Alfonso. On behalf of the Mexican YouTube channel slash blog Retumba, we like to dedicate our time to report and investigate and talk about the new age of stream music. I know that you have a new project called Octoploid, which is due to release their debut album Beyond the Aeons on July 5th via Rain Phoenix Music, correct?
That's right. Thank you, Alfonso, for inviting me. And yeah, that's true indeed. And we've been releasing 2 songs already from the album, and well, they've been received pretty well, I think. And there will be a couple more songs as a teaser before the album release. Yeah, within the next month. Yeah.
Okay, before we dive deep into the conversation about these songs and the sound, I usually start these talks by asking my guest to provide some context or some story about how were you introduced into music and how you discovered your taste and acquire a strong inclination, because I know that you have by now over 30 years of career with your other bands, and it seems to me that you made the right choice because you haven't you are still working as a musician, as an artist. So what can you tell me about those years as a young child discovering music?
Well, to make long story short, my grandfather bought me a violin when I was a young kid, and I don't know, was it a pleasant present for me and people surrounding me, because I kind of sucked playing violin, but still it was useful because I went to lessons and I learned some theory there. I was about 7 years old back then, and I started to learn theory, and my mother put me to music class in the school, and I stayed there until the 6th grade. And basically we had more musical lessons than the other classes, and yeah, and well, my father was a music journalist himself, and therefore there was lots of music playing in our house, like jazz music basically, but also some classic stuff like Led Zeppelin, and yeah, some blues stuff. Also my sister listened to Doors and Black Sabbath and Rolling Stones, and therefore I got familiar with music in relatively young age, when I was a kid. And then there was one Finnish artist called Pave Maijanen, who had a band called Mistakes, and my father has had their album for press, and well, it was kind of big hit then in the early 80s, and I started to listen to his music and dig it, and he played bass and organ as well. I had organ as well, and that's how it started little by little. And maybe the first heavier bands were Kiss and AC/DC, which I started to listen, and there it went to Mötley Crüe and Accept, and then Metallica, Slayer, and Death, and Bathory, and Autopsy, and there it like developed pretty naturally to more extreme music like Morbid Angel and Ball Thrower, Entombed, and stuff like that. And yeah, that's the story of the musical evolution of myself. And then when we were kind of teenagers, we started listening to progressive rock as well, bands like King Crimson and Pink Floyd. And there it started to develop to various directions. With Amorphis, we tried to find out all the Nordic folk artists there was, and there were a couple Finnish bands which played folkish music as well, Pirpauke, and well, Kingston Wall did some oriental stuff back in the days, and yeah, and there the entire story started with my musical career, I naturally had a couple bands before Amorphis, playing speed metal and thrash metal and death metal as well. Bands called Nux Vomica and Metal Disease and so forth. But yeah, that's how it all began, and probably rest of it you probably know somehow already.
Well, I have the impression that Octoploid is a sort of homage to the sound you grew up listening to back in the day. So how much did you leave the idea to marinate of Octoploid before you finally decide to start composing with this approach and take it in seriously?
Yeah, it marinated quite a lot because I already thought of doing a solo album somewhere around Millennium, which means like over 20 years ago. I just thought that okay, I probably have an album in me, and I could go on composing for it. I've been composing music for Amorphis Barren Earth and Manhai, for example. So it's kind of a somehow I felt like it's always necessary to make compromises in bands, and for once I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to do something on my own, and I wanted to take charge in the musical direction and the production as well. So this has been brewing quite a lot, and since I'm writing new material all the time, there's always lots of songs in my bank. So somewhere around Corona times, I started to wonder that because I always thought that by when I'm 50 years old, I will have my own album out. So which didn't materialize quite like perfectly because I turned 50 last year. So but 1 year late, it's all right. I can live with it. But anyway, during the Corona time, I started to wonder, okay, if I want to do this, I need to do it now. And since I have a material in my drawer, and I have time, and I have resources, I have great musicians around me, so why shouldn't I try at least? So therefore we just started to make demos with the drummer Mikko Pietinen, and the aim was to make a demo to get a record deal. But when we had, say, maybe 4 songs demoed, we already were in touch in a couple record labels which were interested in doing a deal with us. So therefore, we just kept on recording, and the demo actually came an album after all. And yeah, then we just went to okay, there are many turns in the process with doing the album, like finding the right musicians. We didn't have a guitar player or keyboard player when we started to record, but then we've luckily found Peter Salonen, who is a young guy, really talented guitar player, playing like rock style mostly, but he's a diverse guitarist, so he can play metal as well. And then I just wanted to rely on old friends with keyboards, and to use different vocalists from my personal musical career. So therefore, almost every one of them are involved. Everybody else but Pasi Koskinen. We just couldn't make it with him. I was talking with him about it, and he agreed already to do it, but I ran out of time and I couldn't go on and record him anymore. Anyway, then we just went to mix the album with Petre Majuri, who is a guy who's I've been working with previously with Barren Earth, for example. He mixed on Lonely Towers album, and some Michael Monroe albums he has recorded. He's basically a blues guy, and well, that's another story. I tried to have as much people involved who are not into in the metal scene generally, because I wanted to have kind of rock and roll feeling on the album as well. But still, that's how it went shortly. And well, basically, I wasn't sure if I'm recording an album in the starters, but it turned to be one, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Nice. Well, so Octoploid, the sound of Octoploid in this record wasn't like a fully conveyed idea before you have the band fully band, and also you start fresh these songs, or do you recollect some old riffs or ideas? I mean, most of all, did you? I had the impression before that you wrote the full album, but this is the result of a full collaboration.
Well, yeah, I thought about it a little bit, like which kind of album should I do, because I'm into progressive rock as well, and I could have done like more acoustic progressive record, but still I wanted to do everything else as well. I wanted to do death metal, I wanted to do stoner rock and psychedelic stuff, and therefore I thought that maybe it's a better idea to combine all those and do something which is totally authentic for myself, because usually when I start to record, I mean compose a song, it's usually a mashup of every different kind of genres I'm into. So it's pretty hard for me to come up with just like only a death metal song or only progressive rock song. Maybe stoner rock songs I have done. It's a little bit easier, but still it's way more natural for me to mix things a little bit. And
Right.
that's something that I will learn to do with Amorphis back in the early 90s. So it's kind of stuck from there. And yeah, therefore I thought about it a little bit, and then just decided to do kind of a solid album with like a crossover progressive death metal, psychedelic songs or whatever, and try to make a whole which is like solid, and which isn't too has too much diversity in it, but enough to be enough diverse to be interesting enough, and
Yeah.
but still I didn't think about it too much. It's kind of something that I just wanted to do, because I tend to make music first for myself, and not to think about the audience or music industry that much
Yeah.
when I music. So it's usually the result is better when you just want to please yourself in the first place.
So you have to clear out your thoughts about this project, and to me, it makes sense that after all, you decide to make an amalgamation of all your music tastes, because if it's gonna be your solo project at the start of it, it should be some project or music that makes a space for all of your interests or inclinations towards sounds and etc. To me, it is a fresh take. I should say that the first single, Human Amoral, was my first approach to the band, and I read these things you described, a mix of 90s Dead Black, 70s prog rock, and 90s psychedelia. And just to be safe, I lower my expectations before playing playing the song. But after a few seconds, I was like fully invested into whatever Octoploid turned it out to be. And so I had the opportunity to discuss this record with you. And well, just to pose you a question, once you decided you wanted to try out different styles into one sound, you've approached it like with being careful, or what song was the first finished song? Because to me, Human Moral is like the one that suggests to me that you went a full pedal to the metal with that song, about this approach.
Yeah, I think Human Amoral was somewhere in the middle of the process, and
Okay.
it wasn't ready when we started to record. I'd say that there are songs like The Dawns in Nothingness, which is the first track of the album.
Yeah.
That was one of the first songs, and also Coast of the Drowned Sailors, which is the second one where Tommy Koivusaari is doing the vocals. That was ready as well, and then there were probably a couple others like Concealed Serenity, which is
Mm.
the end of the album, and but then there were some like songs which were nearly composed and nearly ready, and that I just finished them and started to stretch the creativity a little bit with psychedelia, because I knew that there were people capable of doing such things, and yeah, basically that's how it went, and yeah, there were a couple songs which were written during the session. Probably Dusk of Wakes is one of them, which is the last song, and I don't know, probably Shattered Wings was done a little bit later on. But still, there might be some really old riffs which I've like taken from my riff bank from
Right.
from the hard disk I have. So I usually just start to dig that when I lack some inspiration, and if I have like a incomplete song with maybe one or two riffs and have problem of how do I go on from here, I just start to scan through the files and try to find if there are riffs which would suit and be different enough from two other riffs to make it a little bit to bring some dynamics up. So that's the method of working, and that's how it went this time as well.
So you were in charge of the riffs and the bass lines also, or more than that, the
Sorry?
lyrics. You were in charge of the riffs and
Yeah, I've done also the lyrics and the vocal arrangements and
okay.
all the arrangements basically. I just send the demo tracks to the musicians, and they come to
Okay.
duplicate it in the studio. Probably I give them some freedoms to do it, but still it's almost there.
80 to 90% your input in perhaps.
I would say 94 to
Well,
98%.
well, practically 100.
That's right.
Well, it's curious that you choose to put the first two songs in the first order of the track list, in the first sequence of the album, because that speaks about being transparent with your sound, and also you know how fully invested you were at the beginning of this with this concept or this idea. Because one thing that I notice as a characteristic of Octoploid is how you um, play with bass lines and use it to harmonize it with the keyboards. You know, that's like a one key element of your sound to me. And right off from the beginning, the Dawn of Nothingness shows that, displays that kind of ability. Then another song that you mentioned is one of the latest in to be fully written is Shattered Wings, which to me is also deploying these characteristics. You know, uh, the prominent the playful conjugation of these two sounds, and well, just to say that I appreciate a lot, and it sounds that it's a bass player making this album, because it's really present this instrument throughout the whole album. I'm guessing this was your main intention also, not to display your instrument there.
Well, yeah, as I said, that I've been playing keyboards a little bit when I was young, and then bass guitar naturally. And well, very often bass guitar isn't that present in the mix in the metal albums.
Yeah.
But now I wanted to make sure that you can actually hear the bass. And I told Petri that there should be certain like kilohertzes of the bass guitar present, and that you could hear bass also from laptop loudspeakers, for example, which is
Yeah.
basically impossible with metal albums nowadays. But if you listen to like bands like Cream or Beatles or Pink Floyd or whatever from 70s, a bass guitar is pretty crucial instrument in the
Yeah.
band. But sometimes it feels like it's not how it is nowadays anymore. It's more about drums and guitars and vocals,
Yeah.
which are the most crucial instruments. And well, it's all right. I can understand it, and it's just the case nowadays. But you don't have to go that far. Even during the 90s, there were in the death metal albums, say like in Left Hand Path or Mental Funeral or Blessed Are the Sick, you can actually hear the bass, and it's like basic normal bass sound, and it's not like distorted as fuck. So I just wanted to do it that way this time, and kind of the term like 70s death metal is I don't know. I know that it's already used term, but still, I wanted to make a death metal album for like classic rock fans, people who are into classic rock and that like to have a taste of death metal. So yeah, that's how it could probably sound. And yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's a kinky issue for me because yeah, bass player. So I'm into bass's sound, and I think bass makes music heavier, much heavier. Somehow, modern metal production feels feels a bit light for me because it's just like pretty compressed and
Yeah,
in your face.
it sounds thin, and basses which make it thickens the sound.
That's right. And if you listen to, for example, Jimi Hendrix Experience, it sounds more heavy than many metal albums nowadays. So, and I think it's a little bit ironic somehow. Still, what can you do? I cannot help it. But that was the reason why I wanted to bring out the bass a little bit this time.
Well, that is and also another element in this album that I appreciate a lot. In my experience, is very it makes me enjoy the music even more. These bass lines. I also want to mention the title track, Beyond the Aeons, which is a sort of overture. It took me to remember acts like Osric Tentacles and Spangle from the 90s. And so what about the connotation of those melodies, the psychedelic connotations of those sounds made you or attracted you to experiment with these sounds in your fusion of these things? And also why naming the album like this song, is not it's unusual.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Probably if I talk about that song particularly, I was thinking of a Xysmas Yeah album, which has similar song on it, and I think it's like a good way to bring dynamic to the album and let it breathe a little bit. And
Yeah.
if you think also about Black Sabbath, they had Solitude, for example, and it makes it just a little bit more interesting and like gives the album a new start in a way. Yeah, and about the influences, I think it's not like a direct ripoff, but it's quite near to King Crimson's song Epitaph. Not musically, but it's like we took some influences from it when we were mixing the album with the timpani start and stuff like that, and a really loud mellotron
Yeah.
and so forth. And yeah, I tried to make it just like 70s instrumental in the middle of a metal album. I don't know if I succeeded, but anyway, that's how it went.
You are unsure of that.
Sorry?
You are unsure of having succeeded with that approach.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you.
No, I mean you're not entirely sure, but anyway, yeah, this song is like it puts it inserts the right ambience, the right amount of context to these sounds, and open up enough space for the rest of the album, because the following song, the Hallowed Flame, is slightly different than the rest, more calm sound with the vocals and that kind of thing. And the album is different after that song until the end. So what can you tell me about the album title Beyond the Eons? What is the reference there?
Well, it was just like a title of a song, but still, it's I thought about naming the album as The Distant Ponderer, which is a part of Shattered Wings lyrics, and that comes from uh, a Finnish folklore
Okay.
from Kaukamieli, which is like distant mind,
Mm,
actually, and that was something which I've been referred as, um, but still, it's also yeah, it's about the universe of musical universe in a way, like beyond the eons. There could be anything, and you can find anything from there. So it's like describing the album pretty well in that sense, yeah.
well, the now talking about the last song, At Dusk of Bex, the beginning of it, somehow it with this, well, in my head, is a sort of contorted Eastern melodies, and it made me, imagine myself traversing through space dunes, I don't know, space deserts with weird skies. And that notion made me rethink the album cover. And that realization at the last, well, finishing the album, made me go back to listen to the album a second time with a new appreciation, trying to notice these nuances, So when you start messing with these weird melodies from the 70s, did you have like something in your head, like the way something you wanted to convey in the listener, or for you?
Um, well, it's just for me, like everything starts with the melody. It's uh, there's nothing without it, and uh, first there's a melody, and then you just start to find chords around it, and then it's like that's a good start, and then there should be some riffs as well around it, and uh, where they come from, it's that's a kinky question. There are bands like, for example, uh, well, of course, King Crimson and Pink Floyd and Kingston Wall and even Hawkwind and Janis Joplin and The Cream and some Finnish Slager singers as well, like Olavi Virta. He was a huge thing in the 50s, and that's something that my mother and father listened a lot at home, and I used to sing those songs when I was a kid. So that's basically where it all comes from. I would say that era is the most important thing for me, because there are lots of Schlager influences in Finnish metal, for example. If you talk about bands like Amorphis and maybe Stratovarius, uh, you can hear those like there were usually like Italian songs which were transferred into Finnish
Mm.
language, but still it has same melancholy as in Finnish songs. Still, there are like totally Finnish Slager songs which are really sad usually, and yeah, in the school we were singing some like, well, religious songs, which was like it feels stupid, but still it's there had some like really depressive melodies and depressive lyrics. So that kind of sticks to you, and it doesn't go away at all. So that's where they come from, and I don't know if I wanted to represent anything with this, but still, it's I don't know. It's just kind of, I would like to think of it as like a Pink Floydish prog band, which is arranged in a metal cover, you know.
And about the album cover, you provide some ideas to the artist, or it was a fully realization of him?
Well, I have sent him some guidelines. I think I thought that there should be stars, for example, and then I made a couple demonstrations with artificial intelligence. I used probably
Right.
Adobe Cloud or whatever. I can't remember the actual thing which I used, but I just described the thing and generate a few pictures for him. And well, there was like octopus or whatever, like mixture between octopus, some monster in the sky flying, and sea below, and yeah, and then I didn't play any music for Orion Landau from Portland, Oregon, and he just came up with this, and it was just there. He just sent the first version of it, and then he didn't fix anything about it because it was perfect already. So
yeah.
and yeah, and it was, I think it was a little bit surprise for him when I sent him the music afterwards. Like I bet he didn't expect crawling vocals, for example, but still,
Oh,
I think it's a good thing that it's not a like usual death metal cover art.
yeah.
It's a little bit different because the music isn't only death metal, so it's probably better this way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a happy coincidence that the album cover resonates strongly with the sound of this record.
Yes, definitely. Or maybe I just did a good job like describing how the cover art should be. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that you used AI, because a friend of mine said very firmly that it was made by AI.
Yeah.
But it's very attractive, and it's different, as you mentioned. Is I appreciate when a band decides to present their music with different aesthetic than is used, or more common used.
Yeah.
I should mention the first idea in my head, and I mean, of course, it sounds like your Morphis and Barren Earth. It has your touch on it, but to me, this amalgamation of worlds of death metal and 70s prog rock is like, and don't take this the wrong way, if you mixed, for example, the two versions of Opeth, the classical Opeth and the newer version of it, and well, I just think this is a good thing to have experienced something like, what if uh, Opeth were to fusion these sounds, and I think we have now a good example of how to convey these different sounds.
Well, maybe, yeah, but I don't know. Talking about Opeth, this probably Octoploid is probably a little bit rougher and a little bit like um, I think the Opeth songs are like really composed and polished in a way, but we left little bit roughness into it, and we had freedoms of jamming and improvising in the studio, and not to do it like really strictly. And this, of course, Opeth has like I don't know what's their budget in the studio, but it's probably 10 times more than Octoploid. So that's the other thing which comes into mind, the production. But still, I don't know if any other kind of production would suit Octoploid. We probably should stick into this if we are going to continue making albums. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's Opeth, they are doing great work in the field where they are operating, and I admire the band pretty much. When I first heard it, I think it was still live album. It made me think that okay, someone else is doing this now, and probably I can do it as well, because at the time I thought that okay, my musical career is over, and no one wants to hear what I have to give, because at those times it wasn't that like fashionable to play such music, and but it seemed like okay, people are digging this kind of stuff still, so maybe it's possible to do it once more, and then that's when I started to form Barren Earth.
I thought
yeah,
it
yeah,
makes sense. Makes sense.
yes, and now that Barren Earth doesn't exist, or I don't know if it exists, but it's on hiatus at least. We've been together playing like it was something like 7 years ago, and I don't know will it happen again. But still, that's another reason for Octoploid, because I had an urge to play this kind of music, and I was like a songwriter in Barren Earth as well, and yeah, and yeah, you could say so that this is some sort of continuation to that work. Yeah.
You mentioned Barren Earth, a band that I missed a lot. So is there a possibility for a new material, new music in the future with this band?
Well, I don't close it out entirely, but at this moment it's unlikely that we will do something in really near future, probably sometimes later on, but it would require two things be in order for every band member at the same time. And since there are 6 guys, it's a kind of a it's a challenge. But we have been in talks of doing some shows every now and then, so it's not totally ruled out that we could do something together in the studio as well. I hope so. I don't have anything against it. I think we have a lot to say with that band still, and somehow I feel that the latest album wasn't something that could wrap up our career. So I could see it happening, but not currently, unfortunately.
So if I understand correctly, there is at least one more album in the chamber, but it's not impossible for in later years to receive something from Barren Earth.
Well, if it's up to me, it's totally doable, but I don't know about the other guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have Barren Earth, Amorphis, which tours a lot, makes constant releases. Any anything in the future about this band? Upcoming releases?
You mean Amorphis?
Yes, Amorphis.
We are entering the studio next November, and we will
Nice.
have our new album then, and I hope it will be released the next year. Probably it will, because it will be ready in the early 2025. So we will have a break meanwhile as a band. We won't tour that much next year, but whenever the album will be released, we will probably tour another 3 or 4 years again. So we will probably do it during those years.
Another tour circuit. As we established before, you have well-established bands. and a lot of experience making music. Do you think that with time, with experience, is it easier for you to create ideas, to come up with fresh ideas or just ideas in your mind to make another album, or is it more difficult?
You mean with Amorphis or in general?
In general.
Okay. I don't know, for some reason, right now, it feels for me that it's most easy to come up
Mm.
with music in this age, and to be more creative than ever. It probably has something to do that now that I have skills and confidence in making music, and uh, yeah, it's like more easy for me to take risks in personal level. For example, Octoploid, it's something that I couldn't probably have done with Barren Earth, and like 10 years ago. But I don't know. It's right now I personally feel that there's like flow of creativity going on. I don't know how long will it last, but I don't know. I keep on composing all the time.
Mm.
So now that there are computers and there are like computer programs and everyone can make a record in their own bedroom basically. So it's way easier than in the 90s when there were like 4-track recorders and it took ages to come up with a decent demo. So, but nowadays it's possible to go into the studio whenever you like and are inspired to do so. So it's way more easier to create music nowadays and try out new things in the studio.
You have more tools at your disposal now.
Yeah.
Having said that, that it's easier for you now, and that you are constantly thinking of music composing. When it's the time to create a new album for either of these projects, do you have like a sort of switch? You know, when you notice, okay, this don't belong here. Maybe I will set this apart, or how do you approach that?
Well, personally, I don't uh, use such switches. I just compose music all the time, and later on, I take a look at them and make decisions. Okay, this goes there and this goes there, and yeah, it's because if I would try to force something like, okay, now I'm doing Amorphis song or now I'm doing
Right.
another song, it wouldn't be that good. The result wouldn't be probably that nice.
I, I think it wouldn't fit honest for you.
Yeah, and well, especially this time with Octoploid, I wanted to be as honest as possible, not to have any filters or not think about the response, how will people respond about the album. So,
What should people expect from Octoploid that knows your work, knows your background of
yeah.
Octoploid? What do you think has the more gravitas about this sound? I think you freezed. Can you hear me? Hello? I lost you for a second.
Okay, yeah. Here we
Did you
go
hear
again.
my question?
Oh,
What should people expect, the people that know your background, your career as a musician, about Octoploid? And what do you think is the part of this sound that has the strongest appeal?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. Um, what should people expect, the fans of your work and your music, about Octoploid? What do you think it will appeal to the fans, to the listener?
Well, I think they shouldn't expect like a reinvented wheel, if you know what I mean. But still, it's there's something familiar, but there are also elements that are not mm, uh, heard before in my music, at least in one source. Like I'm probably mixing all the elements from my career and bringing out something that never wasn't there, like extra amount of psychedelia and some like a Finnish slagger music, for example. I've been using as an influence right now, and there are like rock and roll solo guitar, no metal solos at all, and it's an album which should be approached with an open mind and without any expectations or and probably it should be listened to a couple of times at least in order to and at least you cannot like just listen couple songs of it. There are like a different so much different kind of songs, so therefore I would give it time and like listen to it with open mind in order to like get most of it.
Yeah, as I said this before, it sounds fresh, and for me as a listener, as part of the audience, it's all about finding or discovering new songs, new ideas, or new placements for different styles. And I think Octoploid really makes a strong argument about that. I can really say that I have never listened to something similar before. Of course, are a lot of similarities. Of course, it has your tone, your textures, and all of that. But well, I certainly hope that Octoploid continues to develop more ideas in the future because there is some strong excitement here to find. I honestly approach this with high expectations because Human Amoral sets that kind of tone. But personally, I'm pleased to discover all these nuances throughout the record. I, of course, is a record of more than one listening. I have continued to play this record, and it's definitely a grower. So, will you continue? Do you have the intention to make a second album of Octoploid at least?
Well, now that I have that framework for writing music, and I would like to keep still like keep the freedom of composing any kind of material I like to. So whether I compose like music with only clean vocals, for example, and acoustic stuff, that could end up to be an Octoploid album someday. I don't know. You cannot expect it to be like crawling vocals and death metal influenced music in future, but it could be that as well. Who knows? But I haven't planned that so far. I only know that I'm composing music all the time, and there probably will be piling up new songs to my drawer in future, which I have urged to put out somewhere. So now that I have Octoploid, it's easy for me to just come up with a completion and with a whole album if it appears someday to me. So I'm totally open to it, and most likely it will happen. I can tell you
Nice.
that.
I mean, now that you have all these different outlets for to express yourself, it shouldn't be about forcing all these three kind of materials, but about having the opportunity for you to release these different
Yeah,
sounds, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a relieving situation because now there's no need to form another band. If I'd like to play like progressive rock, I can do it under the name of Octoploid, or then if there's going to be a death metal album, that could be also an Octoploid album. Yes, as long as I stand behind it. Yeah.
Right. I want to say, I don't know if I should, but there are some parts of this record or these songs that somehow gives me the notion that it could get weirder and that you wanted to get weirder at points, but you kind of take a step back, to find a nice center for these pieces. I don't know if you are the kind of musician that at points want to get crazy, wants to get things done in a more, crazy manner. And if so, would you indulge yourself in the future? Are you open to that idea?
Well, I've thought that if there's going to be another Octoploid album, it's totally going to be more psychedelic because now I'm just learning how to do it. And to be honest, I just didn't have skills to make it more spaced out because I've always been a fan of like space rock bands like Hawkwind and Ostrich Tentacles and early Monster Magnet and stuff like that. So that's something I wanted to try on this album, but it's still like doing the baby steps, that department in my songwriting. So most likely, because I've just gotten fond of doing things like that, probably I will develop that uh, um, genre a little bit in future in my force.
And I'm guessing that is also the interesting part about having a new outlet to create music, discovering some different aspects about yourself. Like it's like starting again, like you mentioned, baby steps. And when you have a solid career with other bands, I guess this is also the appealing of having Octoploid for you.
Well, yeah, it's totally part of something new, a turning point in my musical career in that way, because uh, it is what I am and not about the band which I'm in. So, and now
Right.
I've had like my own studio or workroom for a couple of years now, and that is also something which is a platform for me to do whatever I like and make as much experiments as I like. And some of those end up to be something and some of them don't. But I don't know. I don't see it as a waste of time because it's a learning process as well. And yeah,
I,
yeah. Well, basically, that's it. Yeah.
I have this question for you because we have talked about how Octoploid is the project in which you give more space for your influences to breathe in. If you could create a night experience with three live bands with Octoploid in the middle, you know, which bands would you pick? One to be before or and another one to be after Octoploid, a one night show.
So which fans? What
Yeah.
was the middle of the question?
Yeah, which bands will you pick to have a three band show with Octoploid in the middle? One for before and one for after.
Oh, you mean any band, past or present or
Yeah,
whatever?
yeah.
That's a good question. Well, probably some freak out stoner rock band, maybe Caius or something, and then maybe the Allman Brothers or something like that.
No necessarily knowing which one will be first and last.
You mean two bands?
Yeah, I mean one for before and another one for after.
Um,
Octoploid being in the middle, like the conjuncture of these two sounds.
okay, yeah. Well, then definitely, I would say the other part being like a Spine of God era Monster Magnet. there's the psychedelia and stoner rock influences. Well, probably the other has to be kind of a melodic death metal band like early Paradise Lost or something. That could be something where the middle ground for Octoploid.
Nice. Well, I have a couple of more questions, and these are more general. Do you find impressed or different by new artists in the extreme metal field?
Do you mean like do I listen to new metal and
Yeah, and if you find that interesting.
well, actually it is interesting, but I'm not into the mainstream metal bands that much. That doesn't interest me probably at all. But there are great bands in the scene, of course. It's kind of hard to come up with the names, but because there are so many of them. But still, of course, the old favorites are still on my playlist. But what should I say? Like recently, I've been listening to Convocation, which is Finnish band, and it's always a pleasure to go to the live concert and watch new death metal bands like Ashen Tomb, for example, which is also from Finland, and yeah, there was a Chain Sword band from Germany, which was really nice surprise. But those bands tend to be on the side of retro metal anyway, so it's kind of hard for me to pick up any modern metal bands, which I would dig. But still, every now and then there are good bands. Bands like Messa from Italy, it's more of a stoner rock band or whatever, and yeah, I really like Murkur from Sweden, and yeah, those kind of bands.
Do you like Oranssi Pazuzu, also from Finland?
Totally, yeah, it's great band. Yeah, it's not that new band, but still, it's one of my favorite bands from Finland. Yeah.
Have you listened to the new song of theirs?
I haven't listened to it yet. I was intending to, but I'm going to.
Okay, so you also like Oranssi Pazuzu. Nice. I am impressed by the work of these guys, and also Waste of Space Orchestra, which I understand is a side project of some of these musicians.
Yeah. Oranssi Pazuzu is probably one of the best bands in Finland, so hands down.
Finland has a lot of history and a lot of influential bands. So I must ask you, for you, Children of Bottom or Insomnium?
Well, hard question. I haven't been listening to either bands from the record, but I would say Children of Bottom because I saw them live a couple times and it was really impressive live band. And actually, one song, Concealed Serenity, on my album, Octoploid album, which is heavily influenced by some Children of Bottom song, which I saw in a live situation like maybe 5 years ago or something. So it is like really influential band still.
Also, do you think metal should be approached? I mean, and I think this is interesting for me to ask you about in the context of Octoploid. Do you think metal should continue to experiment and grow into different aspects of music, pop, vintage sounds, or it should be contained in their own kind of context?
Yeah, I think it's always good to make experimentation, and generally metal people, metal fans, and metal bands are like pretty open-minded people, because no other genre is like mixturing different kind of music together than metal music. It's like you cannot hear growling vocals in any pop band, for example, but still there are pop elements in some metal bands, and so therefore it's like really experimental genre of music. And when it comes to the bands, it's like for example, if you consider Oranssi Patsutsu as a metal band, it's totally different if you compare it to Nightwish, for example. So it's pretty wide genre, and yeah, it's a kind of overlooked by serious music press or music industry. So it's kind of a ridiculous thing, but that's how it is. I don't know what's the reason for it, but that's how it is. And but it's probably better that way if you think about it. It's good to be an outsider in the music world. I think, yeah.
Okay, I want to summarize all of our conversation into one question, and then the final question. Okay, just two more questions here. So we were talking about Oranssi Pazuzu, which for me has a very unique music vocabulary, especially in its latest releases. And now you have Octoploid, in which we have discussed is a new learning process for you. And there is also an upcoming record of Amorphis. I don't know if he's being written by now, but with the experience of a new learning process and a new, kind of creative muscle that Octoploid gives to you, do you think that you would approach differently your music in the future?
That's a hard question, because we do have a producer in Amorphis, for example. So probably it doesn't affect Amorphis that much from my end. Of course, I've learned a lot playing wise. I will probably try to play more if the producer allows. So I'm kind of fan of overplaying. If you listen to bands like Cream from 70s, like Disco Gears album, there's lots of bass playing, for example, and there's lots of interesting stuff going on all the time, lots of improvising. So that's my kind of ball game, and that's the world where I'm coming from. So that's something I try to bring out every time, and within the levels of my skills. And but certainly when it comes to another kind of music writing, for example, Octoploid, it's totally a game changer for me, this album, because now I've proven myself that I'm capable of doing this, and therefore there's no limit to it.
Right. Yeah, there is no limit to it. I hope that you don't limit yourself in the future with anything that has to do with Octoploid. If you could compare or relate what you have in your mind about the lyrics of this record and the sound, what evokes to you personally, with another piece of work that already exists beyond music, like a movie, a book, a painting, which one will you choose and why?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's when it comes to books, for example, Human Moral is a little bit inspired by Friedrich Nietzsche's Antichrist book, and but I don't know if it's like if it gives a good picture if we talk about the whole album. But still, this is a pretty hard question, because it's the influences are coming from pretty wide range. But I'd say that when it comes to musical aspect, probably any more like experimental album from the 90s, I would say, like for example, Jurassic Shift from Ossric Tentacles and Spine of God from Monster Magnet, as I told already. Those are the kind of albums which kind of inspired me, and also Jamiroquai's 3 first albums. And I wanted to bring that kind of outcome to the context of death metal. So that's all I can say about it, basically.
So if we had to take a look about a book, is probably Antichrist, about the Nietzsche book.
Yeah, when it comes to, I share a philosophy with him that it's kind of weird that human beings who are like capable of thinking of themselves and who knows the results of their actions are still working like totally idiotic ways when it comes to, for example, like ecological things, and they are treating other human beings badly, and they are treating animals, their other species, like really bad. And that's still they are like relying on like fairy tale book like Bible, and they're taking their moral laws and rules from that book, and that kind of means that human beings actually don't have a moral on their own. They are just like wanting to if something like totally unmoral thing isn't written in law, probably humans will do it. So whatever isn't restricted is able to is something that could be done moral wise when it comes to humans. So it's kind of a that philosophy is my philosophy as well, and that's what human moral is about. And yes, probably because they are personal lyrics and it reflects my personal thoughts. Maybe there are something in every song from that philosophy as well.
And is the point of view of an observer or of someone who finds a different path, a different way, a different outcome of these things? Which one will it be for you?
Well, partly, of course, because I'm not a saint myself. Like it's like a I'm a human being as well. I try to not to harm animals, for example. I'm a vegan, and that's something which is like against my morals, for example. And but still, it's pretty hard in this society to cope without harming the environment, for example. This is a capitalistic system which doesn't allow people to live in any other way. I would need to move to forest or something to avoid it. So of course it's like I'm a materialistic person as well, because I'm living in this society, and of course I try to fight against it whenever it's possible, but it's not always possible. But yeah, I try to cope with the situation, and it's not an accusation, human moral. It's more it's an observer, and yeah, and I do personally my best to live as morally as possible.
And I do think that having the opportunity to listening to these kinds of messages at least give us time to reflect, even if just for a minute or two, reflect on the things that we are doing and how we could do things differently. Personally, I resonate with a lot of the things that you mentioned here. But again, I'm only a human, and I can only I can see the wrongdoings of others. But if I do some inner introspection, I can realize that I am also in the wrong, you know. And it's a different. It's almost impossible to find, you know, one side, choose one side or the other, because we are immersed by a set of rules and environment that make it impossible for us.
Yeah, but it's like the key to change is always self-reflection. If you see it in yourself, then it's possible to change as well.
Yeah, I mean, as the phrase goes, if you want to change the world, change yourselves, right? Make
That's-
Yeah. Well, Oppu, thank you for your time. I appreciate that you sit here with me to discuss all about Octoploid. The best of lucks with the release.
Yes. Thank you, Alfonso. Thank you for a nice conversation, and all the best to you as well.
Thank you. And when the time comes about to discuss the music of Amorphis, I hope to have the chance to have a second conversation there.
Yeah, of course. I'm all open to it.
Well, have a good night and a good rest of the week. See ya.
Yeah.